special cases of factoring. So the first special case of factoring is when you have perfect square trinomials. So perfect square trinomials are where you have an a value which is squared and a b value which is squared, and your middle term is 2ab. So if you find a trinomial in this form, you can instantly factor this as a plus b times a plus b, or even more condensed, you could write it as a plus b squared. Similarly, when you are subtracting 2ab, you could write this as a minus b times a minus b, or just a minus b squared. So let's take a look at one of the examples. So for these examples, the first thing I would do is identify your a and b value. So my a value is going to be the square root of my first term, so the square root of x squared, which we know is just x. And my b value is going to be the square root of my last term, which is 16. The square root of 16 is just 4. So since I am adding my middle term, I know I'm going to use my first formula. So I could rewrite this as a plus b, so x plus 4 times x plus 4, or I could rewrite it as x plus 4 squared. All right. So you're probably wondering, how do I recognize that this is one of the scenarios? So the first giveaway is if your first and third term, so your first and last terms, are perfect squares, then you might have a chance. And the other way that you could check would be to use this formula, 2 times the square root of a times c, and see if that would equal the absolute value of b. So let's go over one more example here. This time, I'm going to do the one on the right. So once again, see if these are perfect squares. Well, in this case, 64t squared, well, that's a perfect square. 81 is a perfect square. So most likely, I have a perfect square trinomial here. So I'm going to figure out my a value by taking the square root of my first term, which is 64t squared. The square root of 64 is 8, and the square root of t squared is just t. And for my b value, I'm taking the square root of my last term, so the square root of 81, which is just 9. So since I am subtracting my middle term, my formula is a minus b, so 8t minus b, so minus 9, 8t minus 9, which I can rewrite this as 8t minus 9 squared. All right, so we'll save the other examples for class on this one, and we'll also save the application problem for class as well. All right, so the next type of special factoring case is difference of squares. So for difference of squares, obviously you need squares, which would be your a squared and b squared, and you're taking the difference of those, which tells us that we are subtracting. So the formula for difference of squares is a plus b, a minus b. So once again, we're going to try to identify our a and b values and then substitute those values into our formula. So on our first example here, I have a, which is the square root of my first term. So the square root of x squared, which is just x. And I have b, which is the square root of my last term. So the square root of 16, which is just 4. It's important to mention, don't take the square root of your middle sign. That subtraction symbol is telling us that we have a difference of squares. It does not affect your b value. So I can rewrite this as a, which is x, plus b, which is 4, times a, which is x, minus b, which is 4 as well. So I've got x plus 4, x minus 4 as my final answer. Okay. Skipping around a little bit. In the second row, we'll do the one on the right. So once again, my a value is the square root of my first term, which would be 49d squared. The square root of 49 is 7. The square root of d squared is just d. And for my b value, I'm taking the square root of my second term, which is 64. The square root of 64 is just 8. So once again, I'm going to use my formula. So I've got a, which is 7d, plus b, which is 8, times a, which is 7d, minus b, which is 8. All right, one final example. We'll skip back over here on the left. So I've got a, which is the square root of my first term, so 81t squared. Square root of 81 is 9. The square root of t squared is t. And then for my b value, I'm taking the square root of my second term, which is 16. Square root of 16 is 4. So for the final time here, we're using our formula. So we've got a, which is 9t, plus b, which is 4, times a, which is 9t, minus b, which is 4. And that's going to be my final answer. So hopefully you guys got a decent idea on how to factor using the special cases. These cases have limited usages, but when you're able to use them, they work great. Okay? So we'll take a look at the rest of the examples in class. We will keep working on these, but these special cases are very helpful for streamlining your factoring process. All right, thanks for watching.